So I'm here to talk about a problem, and that problem is, we refer to it as traffic quality in the agenda, but let's not be afraid to call it what it is, the F word. It's fraud, okay? So in getting here, and over the last couple of quarters at Expedia, we've talked to a lot of folks in the ecosystem. We've talked to other advertisers, including the brands within the Expedia Inc. portfolio. We have numerous consumer brands that we can talk to. We've talked to Apple, we've talked to Google, we've talked to networks, we've talked to publishers, we've talked to Tune. I had a great conversation with Ian Sefferman last week. And what I found is that there's just not enough awareness of what's going on. Folks have a sense, they know there's a sensation there, but they're really not sure what it is that's causing the problem, what the problem is. So I want to talk about that, raise awareness, and then ask you for help, because we have to solve this problem together. Just me getting up on the stage here talking about it is not going to solve that problem. So invalid traffic, fraud, let's get into it. So here's the problem. It's really big. It's $1 billion big. As of last year, it's going to be $3 billion plus in just a few years. If these numbers look familiar, it's because it's Pokemon Go big. That's my only Pokemon reference. So it's huge, right? We heard Dollar Shave Club got acquired for $1 billion. There's $1 billion in fraud. You could buy a whole Dollar Shave Club with all the fraud that's happening, okay? So it's really big. Two, it takes many forms. I had a graphic of the Mystique from X-Men because it's shape-shifting. It comes in a lot of forms. My lawyers made me take it out for copyright stuff. But it takes a lot of forms. It can be bots, it can be humans, and it occurs throughout the funnel, whether it's impressions, it clicks, transactions, installs, you name it. So you have to look in a lot of different places. Third, it's a freaking pain in the ass, frankly, to deal with, right? So you don't know what to look for, and it takes a lot of work to go and figure out that this is going on. And then once you figure out what's going on, it takes a ton of work to go and get your money back for the spend that you've had that has been exposed to fraud. So what I'm going to talk about is what you can do to go and solve it. So I know you just listened to a great conversation that was kind of very strategic, very high level, but I'm going to get you really tactical in the next little bit. The big risk, I think, is over the journey, if you're running campaigns and you've been doing this for a while, what happens is you see great returns, you see bad returns, but ideally you're scaling up and you're seeing great success, and then you're shouting about the success and you feel good, you're getting some good credibility within your business. The problem that happens is because a lot of this fraud that happens is about stealing attribution. There's a ton of clicks out there that's just trying to get that install attributed to that media source. And what is reality is this. You've got fool's gold. What you thought was really good is actually really bad, and it's worthless. And it's just taking away some of the value that just organic acquisitions would have had or installs would have had. So here's the things that you can do. So one, if you have IOs you're buying and you have control of your IOs, go play lawyer, right? Wear a hat of a lawyer. Go talk to your lawyer and say, we got to fix the IO terms so that they're exceptionally broad. Why? Because if you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what forms fraud is going to take, you have to be extremely broad in the terms that you would define fraud. So you can then go get back or have a claim against, hey, this was fraud, we found it for this way, and we want our money back. Two, you don't know how long it's going to take you to get there or how long it's been going on. So you got to be pretty broad and saying, I need to be able to look at it for some amount of time and then be able to claim those dollars back. So be, again, really clear about payments and make goods. So do you want credits? Do you want refunds specifically? Over what time frame do you want those? Third, require transparency. It's not the solve-all. There's no silver bullet here to solving for preventing fraud, but by having some transparency or all transparency, it'll certainly make it easier for your team to go and figure out where there's fraud. Second, you need to be a bit of a doctor. I've got a 2-year-old, and when he's sick, he doesn't tell you. You can tell, though. You can see the symptoms. He gets cranky. He'll just, erupt out of nowhere. I mean, 2-year-olds tend to do that, but he extra so. And so you got to be a bit of a doctor. So these are some symptoms. And I'll walk you through actual data from our campaigns at Expedia that we've taken a hard look at over the last while that said, our patient, in this case our campaigns, are symptomatic. We got to do something about it. So one, we've got traffic source A. It's got great volume of installs over a period of time. It's got a pretty good CPI that we're happy with, and it backs out, so it looks pretty good. And we're like, okay, let's keep spending here. This is good stuff. We've got traffic source B. It's getting fewer installs in the same period of time, and it's costing a fair bit more. And we said, okay, we can live with that. Let's just make it better. Let's go and optimize that. We feel pretty decent that there's legs here, but it's not quite where we want to be. So we feel like A is better than B right now. But then when you look at the clicks and the CTI it takes to get the installs in traffic source A, you go, holy crap, right? Why does it take 1.8 million clicks to get to these 5,000 installs? Why do we have a CTI rate of 0.3%? And when we looked across our portfolio of campaigns, this really stuck out, and then we saw some other occasions where we'd see low CTI rates, extremely high clicks. And it really questioned, again, if we're diagnosing the patient, we're looking for the symptoms, we're saying, gosh, the patient's got an elevated blood pressure. Maybe we should look a little bit deeper and see what's going on. 2, time to install. So we looked at time to install, so vertical axis percent of installs, day 1 installs that happen, and then the horizontal axis is just the time within the first day. And we saw that from a good traffic source, most of the installs happen pretty much right after the click within the first hour or so, or couple of hours. And you see a lot of clear, I clicked this banner, I went to the App Store, and I installed. Very clear signal to intent and conversion. And when we compare this to our our own sources, so we have placements on our homepage, we have placements after you book a trip with Expedia, we have placements that say, hey, go get your real-time itinerary from our app, use it, et cetera. We saw this curve is pretty much identical to what that looks like. And we said, okay, so therefore this paid source feels like it's really valid. We think it's pretty incremental. But what bad looks like is that. There's no curve. There's basically just this steady stream of low volume of installs across time after the click. And so we said, okay, well, one, there could be some bad stuff going on here. And we think, okay, our creative, though, isn't spammy. Our creative is pretty clear. It's, hey, there's a travel app. You can go book exclusive deals, have great, on-the-go service, updates, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's not like we're saying, hey, free trips, click here, and then trying to just get those clicks. So what's happening, if you go back to the last slide, it was lots of clicks, and people really had no intent to go and install. Just a lot of clicks. And then organically over time, people were just going to the App Store and then installing, right? And so this is basically classic attribution stealing. So all these installs were happening that weren't really attributed or shouldn't be attributed to the campaign. So symptom number 2, as a doctor, we're saying, okay, patient's got maybe dilated pupils too, so something's definitely not right. Third metric, we said, okay, bad CTI. Let's look what happens through the funnel a little bit deeper. Let's look at what happens between the 2 clicks that we get and then the App Store page views. And what we found was a pretty astonishing, call it range and gyrations, volatility in that ratio over time. And this is a several-month period of time. And so what we saw over on the left side of the chart is a fair bit of volatility when we were launching campaigns, when we were doing some optimization, trying new networks, new publisher sources of traffic. And these enormous spikes sometimes were a ratio of over 10x. So again, 10x. So 10 times, you get 10 times as many clicks to the page views you get on your App Store page. So you're wondering, why? How could this be? Where's the disconnect happening? Ultimately, we said, regardless of how it's happening, there's something not right here. So we said, okay, let's go and turn off a traffic source that we saw this greatest, call it ratio for. And overnight, instantly, we saw this go down. And so we said, great, let's just see what steady state looks like for a while. Let's not change anything. Let's not spend more. Let's not add new sources of traffic. And then we'll see what happens. Things should be good, right? We took care of the problem. But then you'll see the bumpiness and the volatility, the growth again that we saw a little while later. And what was happening here was just a game of whack-a-mole. So we turned off a source of traffic in one network, and then a little while later, we saw stuff coming back. I would speculate in these little bumps before this kind of bigger mountain range that came along. There's probably some folks testing, if there were weaknesses. And so we'd see some spikes, we'd turn off a traffic source. We'd see some more spikes, we'd turn off a traffic source. And it just became a game of whack-a-mole. And at some point, we just said, forget it. We're just going to turn off yet another source of traffic or more sources of traffic. So again, third diagnosis would be, or third symptom is, you look at this ratio and you say, okay. In our case, we said, gosh, the T cells are definitely at a high count. A patient's definitely sick. We got to figure out what do we do. So in terms of what we did and the actions I would recommend you take, you got to act and measure. Be a scientist. Test and learn. Okay? And I recognize I'm saying wear a few different hats. You got to be a lawyer. You got to be a doctor. You got to be a scientist. Those degrees are somewhat expensive. But as marketers, it's really challenging to do your job and to do your job well with all these problems that we face in the ecosystem. So what we've done, and I encourage you to do, is go and first just pause campaigns. Look at the data first, and then pause the campaigns that you're seeing these symptoms in, and then see what happens. My guess is you'll see the same things happen that we saw. 2, look at reducing the attribution windows before you go live again with some networks or partners or publishers. And what will happen is you'll see, again, a difference in the behavior or the ROI. And look, it's not going to make things pretty for you. For a while, you're going to say, gosh, the ROI I was getting off of that traffic source is now horrible. It's terrible. I look really bad. And that's okay, because what you're getting is probably far more incremental. You're not going to steal attribution from organic installs. And keep an eye on what your organic installs level are. If you're turning off something that's big enough, what will probably happen is you probably won't see a lot of change in your organics, in your total installs. You'll just see organic go up a little bit, because it no longer is some paid source stealing that attribution. And then last, tune your fingerprinting. So we looked at the distribution of installs coming from our campaigns that were based on fingerprinting versus device IDs. And we said, gosh, it's too much from fingerprinting. We're exposed too much. We're going to reduce our fingerprinting window or reliance on fingerprinting. And I'd encourage you, again, to do the same. And so we're kind of in the midst of that, but we already have some data that says that's a good decision. Again, it's making some of the ROI look worse than before, but we feel it's far more incremental. So we feel much more confident in our spend. So again, I want to take you through some very specific actions. Hopefully this gives you a good blueprint of things that you can go and do. And do it today. I mean, at the lunch break, it's like an hour and 45 minutes. Be open, be social, have fun, but start looking at this. It's really not that hard. You can look at it pretty quickly and start getting some really good insights. And it's not something that you're really going to like, right? It's like going to the doctor and finding out that you got something that you really didn't want to deal with, but you have to do it. You have to diagnose the patient, then you got to treat the patient. Okay? And if you don't do it, at the end of the day, the numbers aren't going to add up over the long term, and somebody's going to come knocking on your door and ask you to explain. So last is a closing. Again, I had an image of the Matrix in here, and our legal maybe take it out, but handy stock photo image that I could use for free. So you have a choice, right? I've talked about this problem, and you have a choice that you can either take the blue pill, you can go home, pretend this never happened, you never heard me say, you're going to look at your numbers and go, those numbers are great, love it, spend more in all these sources, because it's great stuff. You can take the red pill, and you can go and see how far the rabbit hole goes, how deep it goes. And I really encourage you to do that, because if you don't do that, what will happen? Nothing, okay? Nothing will happen. That's the problem. That's why I'm here. A year ago, I was out there, and I was just learning about some of these things. And this year, I'm in a place where I know far more than I did last year. I still don't know enough. I still know a fraction of what you know. But I feel this is so important. I had to be here speaking today about this topic to rally all the advertisers, the guys who spend money to help change the industry. So if you advertisers vote with your dollars, we will cause a tidal wave of change through the industry, and we have to do it. We absolutely have to do it. Or at the end of the day, the fraudsters are going to win, and nobody wants that. So please make a change, help us drive that change, be part of the good for the industry. Thank you very much for the time. And I just want to say shout out to these brands and the folks behind us at Expedia. I hear it's live stream, you might be watching. Thanks so much. And by the way, you could potentially win tickets to New York. So the guy who won the Hamilton tickets, you should go and enter this. All right? Sorry, okay, thanks so much. I'm out of time, and I got to go play some Pokemon.